Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 164. Haters hate and creators create. Anonymous.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's show is sponsored by Film Convert. Film Convert I used heavily on creating the cinematic look I got on my film, This Is Meg. It helps you give your digital video footage a beautiful cinematic look of film instantly. Whether you're shooting on a GoPro, a DSLR, a Red, an Alexa, a Blackmagic, it doesn't matter. Film Convert has created specific camera profiles for almost every camera on the planet so it can adjust to your footage. Film Convert gives you the power to create amazing looking cinematic images with just a couple clicks. And of course, because you guys are part of the Indie Film Hustle tribe, you get 10% off Film Convert by using the coupon code HUSTLE. But you can try this software for free, guys. Just head over to indiefilmhustle.com/film convert. That's indiefilmhustle.com/film, CONVERT. And today's show is also sponsored by This Is Meg, which is on pre-order on iTunes at thisismeg.com/iTunes. Check out what the final product looks like for This Is Meg on a very shoestring kind of budget. And it is released August 4th, but you can pre-order and get a special discount if you order now at thisismeg.com/iTunes. So please spread the word far and wide, guys. I appreciate it. Now, today I have a confession to make. I have a very bad case of what we like to call gas. That is gear acquisition syndrome. And I've been buying vintage lenses now for the last few months. And I'm blown away at what I've been able to get for the money and for the price. And on this show, I'm all about trying to create and give you guys resources to make better movies, to go out there and make it happen, to hustle. And lenses have generally always been one of those things that, like, even if you got a good camera, really great glass is always really expensive, thousands upon thousands of dollars. It could run up to $80,000, $90,000 for some amazing glass. But I kind of stumble across vintage glass. Now, what is vintage glass? Vintage glass is basically lenses that were made years ago. And the looks that you get out of these lenses are amazing. The quality of the builds of these lenses are amazing. You're going to buy a lens that when it came out cost $1,000. You might be able to get that lens for $50 now. And it's in great shape and it looks awesome. So it's really amazing what you can get, the kind of bang for your buck you can get. My lens collection on the interview, at the time I did the interview, it was around up to 30. Now we're pushing around 50. And I'm doing a whole lot of testing with the Blackmagic Pocket, the Blackmagic 2.5, as well as the Ursa Mini. I've thrown it on a couple of Reds. Even an Alexa, and just trying to see what these lenses do and what kind of unique looks you can get out of these lenses. So there are pluses and there's minuses to these lenses, but man, you can really get a really great deal on some good glass. You can get Zeiss lenses. You can get a nice set of Zeiss primes for under $1,000. Are they as amazing as the $5,000 Zeiss primes that are out there right now? Per lens? I don't know. Probably not. It doesn't have the same functionality. But can you get a really great image out of it? Can you make an indie film look awesome with it? Sure. Why not? You can. And I'm going to be doing a lot of testing in the coming weeks and months, and I'm going to start putting out videos on my experiments that I'm going to be doing with my lenses for my next movie or two that I'm going to be shooting exclusively on vintage lenses is my goal, to give it a very unique look. And in the world of digital, 8K, 5K, amazing giant sensors that see everything, sometimes a vintage lens will help a lot in cutting the digital bite that these sensors have and gives it a really nice fall off in the in the edges, and the skin and people look amazing. Now today's guest runs one of the best sites I've seen for vintage lenses for video. It's actually called vintagelensesforvideo.com. And the man who runs it is Alan Besedin. And he's been doing this for probably 3, 4, 5 years now, I think. And he's been going deep into vintage lenses. I've scoured his site and I've watched every video he's put out, read every article, and it's a great place to get your feet wet if you're interested in looking for vintage lenses at a good price. You can see what they look like. You can see what they look like on a Panasonic GH4, on a Sony, on Blackmagic. He does multiple tests with multiple different cameras, and what the good things are, what the bad things are, is very honest about it. And the kind of adapters you need to get and so on. So it's really a great resource. And I wanted to basically have him on the show and just pick his brain about all the experience he has with vintage lenses and what he does. He is a professional videographer and photographer, and he's taken these guys out in the field and really put them through the paces. So this interview lasts almost 2 hours. I geeked out a bit in this interview. So if you are into lenses and getting the best bang for your buck, this is honestly a masterclass in vintage lenses and what you need to get. You can get into, I mean, seriously, I've got some lenses I paid $40-$50 for. When I throw them onto the Ursa Mini or on the Blackmagic, my mouth drops on the floor. I'm like, are you kidding me? They look great. But we're going to get into the pluses and minuses of some of these lenses in the interview. So without any further ado, here is my interview with Alan Besedin from VintageLensesForFilm.com. I'd like to welcome to the show Alan Besedin. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for being on the show. I am a huge fan of what you're doing over at Vintage Lenses for Video, and it is your fault that I am now addicted to vintage lenses. And I'm like, well, why don't I just buy this one and let's try it on this camera and will it work on an Ursa Mini? Why not? Let's give it a shot. Throw it on an Alexa. It starts getting out of control, and it has been. I've now, my addiction has gotten to plus 30 in less than a month.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. And you are not the first person who got into this kind of addiction, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy because one of the reasons vintage lenses are great is the affordability, and it's so easy to get addicted just because you can afford them.
Right. It's like, oh, it's just $50. Oh, it's just $30. Oh, you know. And then when you're getting really froggy, it's like, oh, $150. You know.
Yeah. And then you see like a lens kit, like a camera kit, someone selling on eBay, their old camera kit, and they have like 5 lenses in there.
Oh, that's
you get
just
that one,
that's
and you
just
get
heaven.
another one,
Oh, yeah,
and before you know, you've got hundreds.
Well, the reason I wanted to have you on the show is not only because of your knowledge of vintage lenses and stuff, but I really wanted to kind of show filmmakers that you don't need to buy super expensive gear to get a good image, especially lenses. And lenses are more expensive a lot of the time than the cameras. Most of the times they're more expensive. Even to get a decent prime set is sometimes much more expensive than the actual camera you're going to be using it on. So I know that kind of scares off a lot of filmmakers, but when this kind of opened up my eyes, I was like, wow, you can get good image. You can get a really good, clean image. And also you can get some very unique images as well, depending on what you're going for. So before we get started, how did you start Vintage Lenses for Video.com?
Okay, so I think back in 2009 when Canon 5D Mark II came out,
mm-hmm.
that was my first transition into video from photography. Up to that point, I was never really inspired by what I was able to film with affordable cameras. So as soon as I got into the video side, I kind of started exploring the options just because, like you say, modern lenses, even like Canon EF glass,
mm-hmm.
can be really expensive. and I was mostly using, the standard zoom that everyone did, like the Canon EF 24 to 105
mm-hmm.
for most of my work, and it was okay. It's still a good lens, but it's not particularly inspiring.
Right, it's a good word to use.
And I felt, that the focus ring wasn't really pleasant to use. And same with other Canon EF lenses, that the autofocusing is great, and they just didn't care about making the manual focusing features on those lenses, just because no one will really use them. And just by chance, I got hold of 2 very cheap vintage lenses. And as soon as I tried them for the first time, I was hooked. The focusing rings were smooth, long focus throws, like manual aperture adjustment, which on some of them is already declicked or easily declickable. Build quality, for example, I once broke a Canon EF 51.4 from just a light knock.
Really?
Just a very light knock. It just snapped the connection of where motor connects to the focusing or whatever. Probably just a small plastic part just broke, and that's it.
And
the lens gone.
And how much is that? How much is that lens new?
The Canon AF 51.4.
Yeah.
About $350, maybe a bit more.
Okay.
And Canon FD, so the old version of Canon lenses, 51.4 is about $50. So you see what difference you're looking at in price.
And the quality is comparable.
And then the build quality is just completely different. So again, I was looking at those lenses that I paid $10-$20 for, and they were fully metal, amazing focus rings, interesting image, and actually pretty good optical quality as well. Obviously, with vintage lenses, most of the time, optical quality is not the main factor why you choose them, especially with the cheap ones, because obviously modern lenses are perfect. They are computer designed and everything's super precise. But if you spend a little bit more, there are still vintage lenses out there that can outperform modern lenses in terms of optical quality, and also have addition of that character, that kind of look that a lot of people desire.
So can you give me an example of a lens that you bought, a vintage lens that optically competed or surpassed a modern version of itself?
Well, the easiest example is back when I still had access to the Canon EF 51.4, fairly popular Canon lens for photographers and video people who use Canon cameras. I tested that against a much cheaper Nikkor 51.4.
The Nikkor, yeah.
Yeah, Olympus 51.4. That was a test that you can find on my website.
Sure. Minolta too is also another good one.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
And Canon FD as well. But at the time, I still had my Canon 5D Mark II camera, so I wasn't able to get into as many lenses as I can now. And even then, Nikkor outperformed the modern Canon in terms of sharpness wide open right away. And it was a very easy example. Obviously, as years went and I kept discovering more and more lenses, and lately looking into Zeiss contacts lenses, I discovered all these other amazing lenses that can outperform modern equivalents, or at least modern lenses that cost as much. So, for example, you can either buy a cheap modern prime, or for that money you can buy a fairly high-end Carl Zeiss Contax prime that back in the day would have cost $2,000 or something like that, and now you can buy it for $200.
Right.
And,
so as opposed to buying a Rokinon for $300, cinema lens, you could buy
and you look at the forums, and there were a few places where I've seen that question being asked, not just on my groups, but in like filmmaker forums and stuff like that. And people just ask everyone else, should I buy a Rokinon or like a Zeiss Contax vintage lens? And each person just says Zeiss because they're well known to
It's Zeiss.
perform amazingly. Yeah.
Right.
I have nothing against Rokinon. I had one of them when the first one came out, the 35 millimeter.
Yeah,
I loved it.
they're great.
For the money back then, it had all these amazing things like this again smooth focusing ring and aperture adjustment and
it's great
performance. Yeah, I have absolutely nothing against modern lenses, especially the ones that are kind of designed for video side.
The cinema series. I have a full set of Rokinon cinema series, and they're fine. They're great. But when you compare them to
if I had more money, I would have that for full set, 100%. It's just that I can't afford every single lens I want.
oh, my friend, you and me both.
Yeah, so it's a right lens for the right job. If you have access to many lenses to choose from, you will not always choose the vintage lens. There are things, there are jobs, there are projects where modern lens will be better. They give ultra clean footage. They are ultra sharp. So something like VFX,
Yes.
Stuff where you need super high contrast, super clean image because you will be adding all of that in post.
A sci-fi show, like I just did a sci-fi show, and I shot it with the Sigma zooms, the new Sigma cinema zooms. They're gorgeous, but they're perfect. And I would have never in a million years attempted to shoot a show like this with vintage glass. It just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense.
Yeah, try adding any additional elements to the footage that already has massive flares on it. It's impossible.
Right.
You have to get a clean image and then add all of that in post. But if project is something where it's narrative, kind of natural, music video, some creative film, where you will not be adding any extra elements in post, but you want it to have character, you want to have soul, then for me, you can't beat a good vintage lens because nothing beats in-camera flares, in-camera characteristics like little artifacts, little imperfections that give it that little bit of magic, which takes you away from the reality.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you what you mentioned a few of the benefits of buying a vintage glass, but can you go over? And a long throw is really good. Declicked aperture a lot of times. The look. What else? And price.
So much more.
I mean, yeah,
there's so much
lists.
more.
What are the lists? What do you think?
So to recap, the main reasons I think are affordability, character, build quality, and usability. And to break that down a little bit, vintage lenses, again, are super cheap. Not all of them, but there are plenty. There's lots to choose from that are very cheap. You can buy a mini set for $100, like let's say maybe 28 millimeter, 50 millimeter, maybe 135 millimeter, something to start with. And you can start shooting, getting great images. Obviously, as you discover your lenses, or you have a bit more budget, you can spend thousands if you want. Or if you get into vintage senior lenses, then the prices are just absolutely crazy because how popular they are nowadays. But the point is that you can start at the very low end and get great cinematic images because you always want to choose primes if you can for like cinema purposes. Primes will generally outperform zooms unless they are modern zooms. Obviously, like you mentioned, Sigma zooms, they're amazing.
And Angenu too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Even the vintage Angenus are pretty insane.
Yeah, one thing they have is character, and it's amazing. Especially those Super 16 ones.
Yeah, I just got one. It's on its way.
Yeah.
I just got one. It's on its way.
Yeah, it's like being back in the day, when shooting with them.
Yeah, I mean,
There's so much character.
yeah, there's so much character, and I mean, even if you want to start spending, it all depends on pricing. I mean, like you say, you could buy. I've bought the cheapest one I've bought is $15, and I pop it on, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! Like this looks perfectly fine. It looks great. And then the most I've spent is 500 on the Koptic 5.7.
Oh yeah,
Which I
that's
just.
very intense.
Oh, I love that lens. It's absolutely love.
And it's also, I think in my review, I don't remember now, but I think it was used on some, fairly interesting project.
The 5 points.
Kubrick used it for some stuff.
Well, yeah. So this because I actually did I'm doing a review on mine as well because the reason I got it is because of Kubrick, because Kubrick shot The Shining and parts of The Shining, lots of the parts of The Shining, like the famous hall scenes and the maze scene and stuff like that, with the Koptic 9.8, which is the 35 millimeter version of it. And he also shot a tremendous amount of Clockwork Orange with it. Shockingly, because I remember like the scene right before the singing in the rain sequence, as we call it, in Clockwork Orange. I saw it, and he just like kind of did a little dolly across, but you can see the softness on the edges. And I'm like, you could actually see the softness on the edges. But for someone like Kubrick, who was, obviously a master, one of the great masters and giants of the film industry, and he was so perfectionist. I mean, he's such a perfectionist of what he was trying to do. To let that go says something. He wasn't interested completely in a perfect image. He was interested in an interesting image that helped tell the story. And that's what vintage glass gets you. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And that lens is a perfect example of something very special and very unique that, again, you can kind of mimic in post, but
no,
you can't be the real thing.
It's hard. I mean, just so everyone who's listening, the Koptic 5.7 mil is a extremely wide lens, but it does not fisheye. Which is a very unique thing, and it's something that can't be ignored too much. But I'm dying to shoot like a chase sequence, and like imagine watching the Point Break chase sequence, the foot chase, shot in that.
I'm kind of sad I didn't use mine enough.
Did you get rid of yours?
I had to, just because with what I do, I have to rotate the lenses. I can't keep all of them. So to be able to afford something else to review, to try to explore, to get my knowledge up, I have to sell some of my lenses in order to get something new. So unfortunately, there are a lot of lenses I had to let go. Otherwise, I wouldn't be where I am with my current exploration, like buying Zeiss lenses.
Right, yeah, because you buy, because I see some of these on your site, and I was like, wow, those aren't cheap. That's cheap.
And at the moment, I don't have any relationships with any rental companies or any lens brands or anything like that could, I could borrow a lens from and review it, try it. At the moment, pretty much 99% of lenses that you see on our website are the ones I actually bought myself, and had to pay the full price, usually on eBay.
Right, exactly. And a lot of the lenses, if not all most of the lenses I think that you reviewed or looked at are not for rental, generally speaking. Like, you have to kind of like to go find a rental of a 5.7 Koptic. It exists. I'm in LA, so it's here. But it's rare, and it's hard. But like the Helioses, and which we'll get into in depth, or these older, like, where are you going to go get a Minolta?
Exactly.
Rental.
My goal is mostly to bring the lenses that most people will be able to afford. That's kind of how I hope to do this thing, but eventually, obviously, I will get into high-end cine glass that you probably can only rent, but still, I'm sure it will be useful to people, trying to choose, to get inspired as to, maybe what they want to choose for their next project.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm definitely hoping that I will establish a relationship with a rental company eventually, where I will be able to to grab some sets like Zeiss Super Speeds or Cook Speed Pancros or some other classic cine lenses, and try them, compare them, and give my own take on what they are like.
Where are you where are you located, by the way?
I'm in London, just kind of on the edge of it, but there are plenty of places here where I could do it. It's just at the moment I'm busy enough with my own glass. I still feel hungry. I still feel inspired by what I have here on my hands. So I don't feel like I really need to get into external, kind of
rentals and stuff
places.
like that.
Yeah, to try and keep this going. There are still so many lenses that I want to discover and share that I can kind of afford. So that's where it's going.
So let's talk about the Helios 44 58 millimeter. You are a Helios junkie, a self-diagnosed Helios junkie. And I actually purchased the Helios. I got a 44M, and I've got 3 44Ks coming, I think, or 2s. I think no, 44 2s coming.
44 2s is the most common one.
Yeah, and I got 3. There was a set of 3 mint ones, and I bought them for $45. So I was like,
absolutely, never too many.
So I
give them to your friends.
Right, that's why I was going to do some
gift. They just amazing. I'm like you said, the self-proclaimed ambassador for those lenses.
Yes.
Unfortunately, no one is paying me, but I just want to share the love for that lens because I think everyone should discover that lens.
So talk to me a little bit of why it's such a magical lens. Not only because it's completely affordable and it's easily the most produced lens in the history of lenses.
Probably. The supply doesn't end.
It really does.
One of the obviously really important reasons why so many people have them.
Do you know that you want to hear a quick story? I was talking to, do you know Matthew Duclos?
Oh, yeah,
from Duclos Lens. I was talking to him the other day, and he's like, "Hey, we were offered," because I was telling him about the Helioses, and he's like, "Yeah, we were offered probably 1,000 or 2,000 Helios, a package of that they could do whatever they want, rehouse them, and all this stuff." Yeah. And he kind of ignored it. He's like, "No, it's not what we do," and he kind of passed on it. Then all of a sudden, dog shit lenses or optics came along, and he's like, "Oh, so that's where they went."
Maybe.
No, that's exactly it is. It's exactly where they went. They started off with 1,000 or 2,000 of those vintage Helioses to start creating.
They sell. People buy them.
Oh, the dog shit.
I don't.
Yeah, I know. They're expensive. They're too expensive.
I'm happy enough with as it is. I think it's already a incredible lens as it is. Obviously, dog shit optics adds a lot of little additions to those lenses.
Yeah, sure.
But the price is
it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's a little bit pricey.
I mean, for professional production, if you want to use this lens on an Alexa or something like that, where you need it to have a robust build quality, nice focusing ring, all those sorts of things, yes, makes sense. But for an average user or an occasional use, I think the Helios 44-2 as it is fine. It has declicked aperture, although a strange one because it kind of goes the other way around. It's something that's called preset aperture, something that they used back in the day for photography purposes, where you would set your aperture, then rotate the ring to open it up completely to help you with focusing, and quickly step it down to your preferred stop for actual taking of the picture. So it's something that was never intended to be a declicked aperture, but to us filmmakers, it became, that declicked aperture that we really wanted. And you can add obviously a focus gear to that lens, and even a PL mount can be added to that lens very easy. So for occasional use, even on head camera, you can totally use that lens as it is.
Right. I mean, if you're on a $200 million movie, not so much. But if you're on a little indie movie, you can create a nice set of these kind of lenses to make it work. So what makes it so magical in your opinion? I know the answer, but I want the audience to understand why, what's so magical about it as far as the image quality and what it gives you, the character.
Okay, so being a Russian-made lens, the word is that the optical performance as far as sharpness is a bit inconsistent, because back in, USSR days, the quality control wasn't that great. So although my one, or at least one of my copies, is incredibly sharp, wide open, that's not necessarily its strongest point. Its strongest point, though, is its character, which extends into so many directions, from just the most incredible dreamy flares that just take you absolutely elsewhere. It's not, you're looking somewhere with your eyes and then you point that lens at the same thing, especially if you have some low sun or something like that in the scene, and it just takes you to this dream world where it completely transforms the image. And then obviously you probably know already, it has the most amazing swirly bokeh.
The bokeh. Oh,
the bokeh, yeah.
yes.
That's it.
It has how many blades? It has like 8 blades?
Yes, it has 8 blades. There is a version with 13 blades that I don't have at the moment. It's a bit more expensive.
What is the version of that? I want that one. What's the name of that one?
It's like the early silver finish.
Oh, it's the silver Helios. I kept seeing those. It's a silver one, huh?
I have a few silver Helios 44s, but none of them is a 13 blade version. It's really difficult to find one without seller actually knowing that he's selling a 13 blade one.
Right.
The people who actually know that their Helios is a 13 blade one, they charge at least $100 for one, which is 2-3 times more than an average on eBay.
Is it worth it? Is it worth it?
Not really. It's more of a I want this special one thing, and there are plenty of people who will want this special Helios thing. As far as bokeh goes, I don't think there is much difference in it at all, because even the 8 blade Helios 44 has great bokeh, even stop down. There's no unpleasant shape to it at all. I think it stays fairly round in the middle, and everyone knows what swirly is. Maybe not in terms of bokeh, maybe not everyone saw that, but if you Google Helios 44 and just look at the images, you will really quickly understand what it is. And it's another thing that it's impossible to see with your eyes. And a lens gives you that thing, which is so amazing, which is what it's all about, when choosing lenses. It's seeing that thing that you can't see with your eyes.
Now, the other rumor on the street was that during after World War II, the Russians that occupied East Germany, they actually went in and to the Zeiss factory and stole the formula.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. Actually, there are many ways to word it. Some people are more gentle about it. Some people, can be quite aggressive about what happened. But it, more or less, that is the thing that happened.
Right.
A lot of Russian lenses, including the Helios 44, were based on Zeiss formulas from the day.
And so, that's why they look amazing.
Yes. So actually, that's the whole background of why this lens is so amazing.
Is the Jupiter have that similar situation?
Yes, Jupiter is also based on a Zeiss lens, as is the Tire 11, 135 millimeter, and even the Mirror 1, which is like a 20 millimeter.
I have that one. It's amazing.
Yeah, all of them are actually well, most of them, I'm not going to claim that every single one of them is based on Zeiss, but most of these lenses from that age are at least in some way based on the Zeiss, alternatives. Some of them will have slightly different speed or maybe slightly different focal length, but in overall they are kind of Zeiss copies, and that, I guess, is another really important reason why they look so amazing.
Yeah, that Mir 1 20 mil I paid 150 for it, so it was probably one of the more expensive ones I got. But it's solid. It feels like a Cine Prime in my hand.
Yeah.
It's super solid. The images it gives you is amazing, and you're looking literally a 20 mil for $150. That it gets,
and a full frame 20 mil as well.
Full
a lot
frame.
of people forget, because I have reviewed, like my last review was a Canon FD 17mm 3.5. So 17mm 3.5 in modern world sounds a bit underwhelming, because you look at all these cameras that come with kit lenses, on the lower end.
Yeah.
And the kit lens is like 17 to 50 or something like that.
Right.
And people are like, so why the hell would I buy a 17mm 3.5 prime when I have my kit lens? A lot of people ignore the fact that vintage lenses, especially the ones from the photo world, are mostly full frame. So try getting a 20mm full frame prime for $200
at 2.8. I think it's a 2.8, if not faster.
Yeah, there is a version that is 2.8. I don't know which one you have, but there is a version that is 2.8, and if you paid 150 for it, then you're a very lucky man. I did
know it is a 2. I know it's not a 3, because I barely get anything that's over 3. I always get it at least 2.8 or below.
That one is should be at least double the price.
Wow. You get lucky.
That's the joy of the lenses. Some of them I get kind of, in lenses are posted on eBay. Sometimes some will describe it in slightly wrong way or doesn't understand what it's selling.
Oh yeah, there's a few of those.
It's part of the package, and there are some real gems that can slip through the system. And that's the way I've picked up so many of my lenses.
Yeah,
it takes some time, but I think generally pays off.
So, because we could geek out about lenses for another 2 hours. So I want to get to some questions about specific things. So hopefully the audience could get some help with. If you were going to choose 3 lenses that you had to have in your set, vintage, which ones would they be and why? Primes.
There is
primes.
Okay. There is a video of my 3 go-to lenses that I've made a year ago. Just the lenses that I pick up the most. They're not necessarily the ones that I would have in a set, but I'll just quickly run through them and maybe give you another option. So the lenses that I had in my video, my go-to lenses that I pick up the most to actually use, were the Canon FD 50mm 1.4 with a focal reducer, like the Metabone Speed Booster, but like a cheaper version. So in theory, I had, when I used it on Super 35mm camera, in theory, I had a 36mm f1.0 prime out of that combination. So basically for $200 or so, complete package with a focal reducer. There I had this incredibly fast prime that I could use for low light, for all sorts of beautiful shadow depth of field shots. And I've used that lens combination for years for work. Just whenever I needed, a nice looking image or any like a low light monster. So that was one that I used for, almost every job until recently. Now that I kind of went back to full frame, I still use the lens, but I kind of dropped the focal reducer part of it because I no longer need that. The second lens was a Zeiss Jena 35 millimeter f2.4. So that's Zeiss Jena is like the lower range of the Zeiss lenses.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people call them, they say, oh, not real Zeiss because they were made in the, I believe, the occupied part of Germany, where, so basically, Zeiss kind of split into two sections. One side had this Zeiss Jena range, and another part had Zeiss Contacts, which was the high-end stuff. But even the Zeiss Jena lenses were still made by Zeiss engineers. They were still based on Zeiss formulas. So
and they're pretty good. I mean, I was going to ask you. I had a Carl Zeiss Jena question for you because I kept seeing so many different Carl Zeiss quote unquote lenses, and then we see the real super expensive $2,000, $3,000 Carl Zeiss, and I wanted to know if you knew what the difference was between the Jena and the other ones, and are Jena good? Is that a good set to have?
Actually, I'm currently working on an article which is based on a Carl Zeiss Jena set. So the goal was to kind of create a mini cine set out of Carl Zeiss Jena lenses. So declicking them, adding Canon AF mounts to them, adding universal fronts to them, so all of them have same front size, focus rings. So basically, like a mini cine set that is based on Carl Zeiss Jena still lenses. So. And the goal was to kind of do it all under $1,000, which I think for a mini cine set is great for something that is just ready to go out there and shoot.
And would you argue that they're better quality than a Rokinon set? And I don't keep meaning to beat up Rokinon,
I wouldn't say that they're better than Rokinon. They definitely have more character. Images are definitely a bit more interesting. They are slower, which is the downside. Rokinon also probably are sharper. But I think the build quality is a bit better because even though they're not Zeiss contacts, they're still all metal. They still have nice long focusing throw and generally smooth focusing rings. I don't think you can buy a Rokinon set for 1,000. At least not.
I think it's 1,800 to 2,000 for like a 4 to 5 lens set.
So with Zeiss Jena, you will get 20, 35, 50, 80 millimeter, and a 135 for under 1,000, including the cost of your gears, your declicking, your EF mount. So basically the whole thing. So that's kind of just to answer your question about the Zeiss Jena lens, that I think they are good enough they will be good enough for a lot of people, and that's why I decided to kind of concentrate on them in particular to create this guide that I'm working on, and hopefully will be out soon to help people see what they can do for just $1,000.
I am definitely eagerly awaiting that article and video.
And so the third lens is, we don't need to talk about it much because the third lens in my go-to trio is the Helios 44-2. We already spoke about it. This is the lens that will probably always be, people often say, what is the one thing you will take to deserted island? So it's that kind of thing. If there's one lens that you would take, it would always be the Helios 44-2 for me.
Nice. And what's the difference between the 44-2, 44M, 44K? Is there a big difference?
So it started with the 44. That's the original. They also had quite a few versions in that. Like there was the silver one, and then they had some zebra stripes on it, and the black one, and obviously the 13 aperture one. There's still lots of little variations in the 44, but that was the original one. And then 44-2 was like Mark II kind of thing.
Okay.
And then they added, as they were upgrading, they dropped the number, and instead they went with a 44M. So with M and then like M, 2, M4, and so on. So M would stand for the M42 mount, the screw mount, and then they have like 44K, like you said, that they made it for the Pentax K mount. So probably for export reasons, to just allow more people to use such lenses on different cameras. And again, then you have all sorts of variations where it went to, 44M2, 44M4, and so on. Again, there were upgrades, little, things that they must have improved. The word is that the sharpness was improving as, they were upgraded to the next version.
So if you were gonna get a Helios right now, which model would you go after?
For me, it's still the Helios 44-2, just because for me it's a perfect combination of performance and imperfections, I would say. Because the later versions, they still had, it's really bulky. Well, maybe not all of them, but I think, because I haven't tried all of them, but the thing is they were trying to improve them. So, and with Helios, I don't want it to be improved any more than what it was with the Helios 44-2 version. For example, the Helios 44M, when you get it, I don't know if you got it already.
Yeah.
You will notice that they changed the body design. So the clickless aperture has gone because they changed how they do the metering on the cameras. So they no longer needed that preset aperture adjustment. So now that if you want your Helios to be declicked, you would have to do it manually. Where with 44-2, it was already there, when you bought the lens.
Got it.
So it's just kind of perfect. Again, another thing, PL mount. With 44-2, you could add PL mount. 44M had a different body design, so PL mount is no longer possible. All sorts of things like that, just little things that make 44-2 just a perfect combination. Maybe even the focus throw. 44-2 has this incredible 300-degree focus throw or something like that.
It does.
Like cine lens level.
Yeah, it's exactly like a cine lens almost.
Yeah. Again, I'm not gonna claim it, but they might have reduced a little bit in the 44M or later versions.
Right.
So things that might have been improvements to some. I think to video guys or someone looking for that specific character lens, not necessarily the things that you want. So.
And then if you had to choose one or two zooms, that vintage zooms that you can under 500, under 3 to 5, between $300 and $500, or under $300 that you think are just amazing.
Such a tough question, to be honest. Gets asked so much because people are so spoiled with modern zooms.
Yeah.
How great they are. And the honest answer is that vintage zooms generally aren't particularly good. So I've been looking to find something that I would want to use for a long time, and it has been a struggle, but I'll give you a few options that I think are great. So the first one is the Minolta 35 to 70 3.5. So by the sound of it, super underwhelming. The range, just get a 50 millimeter, right? We're much faster. Just sounds like, it's not quite wide enough. It's not quite tight enough. Like, why would you use it? But it's slow. Again, like you said, you don't want to use anything over f3. But the lens just has such a beautiful image coming out of it.
Minolta has really surprised the hell out of me. I've gotten 2 Minoltas so far, and I'm building a little mini set of Minoltas because it is sharp. It was staggeringly sharp, and the image you get is remarkable. And I think
it's super smooth, beautiful image, beautiful flares, really warm tones out of it. Yeah,
cheap. I mean,
very cheap, super cheap.
$20. I mean,
Yeah.
insanely cheap.
One of the reasons is unfortunately really bad compatibility with Canon EF mount cameras. Just because like of the flange distance with the Canon EF cameras.
But it worked great with Micro Four Thirds.
Yeah, Micro Four Thirds, Sony E mount, one of the best choices. Unfortunately, if it's Canon mount that you're after, then Minolta and Canon FD lenses are the ones you generally want to avoid, because converting them to EF properly is a bit costly. And just buying a cheap adapter with correctional element will absolutely ruin the quality of that lens. They become slower, I think, or I haven't even tried that because it's so bad, but I think the image gets kind of zoomed in a little bit. It has like a bit of a teleconverter effect to it. It might lose some speed as well, but the most important thing, the images just become soft. So
I mean, I put the Minolta, I think it's the 50 or the 35, I don't remember which one it was, but I threw the EF adapter on it, and I threw the EF onto the Metabones speed booster on a Blackmagic pocket.
Wow,
gorgeous.
What, still good enough?
Stunning. That's what I was talking about. I haven't seen it yet on a on just Micro Four Thirds. I only have the EF mount.
Yeah, I mean, if you take out the EF mount out of equation, because your one probably has this optical element inside it.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, if you get rid of that, it will be like taking off blurry glasses from your eyes. It's just, you will pick up so much sharpness with it. And
so I could just go to an EF Minolta to EF, Minolta to Micro Four Thirds, and it'll be better.
Will absolutely be better. I'm sure Metabones
helps.
Speed Booster. If you had Speed Booster, did you?
Yeah, Speed Booster.
Yeah. So I think Speed Booster might be kind of taking out some of that negative effect you were getting with a cheap EF mount thing. But yeah, just get rid of the EF mount and just go straight into the Micro Thirds and just be so much sharper, clearer, less ghosting, and all sorts of artifacts that generally are not particularly pleasant. So coming back to that Minolta lens, the reason why I recommend it, it's not just because I like it. Leica actually liked that lens so much they used it for their own 35-70 zoom back in the day when they were making Leica R zooms.
Really?
So if you need a proof that this lens is great, this is the proof for you. If Leica thought that was good enough for them, a good enough optical formula to use on their own lenses, then that's good enough for me. So there are those little gems, and that lens is like $50 in Minolta finish.
Really?
In Leica R, it's probably 10 times more, and it probably will not have that much difference because it's the same optical kind of formula, maybe slightly different coating, but there are those little gems that you can still pick up for $50 and less, and maybe some little bit more. But they are just this amazing things that you can discover if you look into vintage lenses.
Now, let's talk about mounts real quick, because I know that is a big thing. A lot of filmmakers trying to get into vintage lenses have issues with, and I've had my challenges with different mounts. Can you talk a little bit about the most popular mounts and the easiest to adapt mounts, and then which mounts you should kind of stay away from?
So like I said, if you are a Canon EF mount user, be it a Canon EF camera or maybe something like an Ursa Mini in EF mount or anything like that, then three mounts that you generally want to avoid in vintage world are Minolta MD, Canon FD, and Konica IR are the most kind of popular mounts that you should avoid, just because you will have massive problems getting most out of those lenses. you can still buy those adapters that you are using, and you might think, oh, this is fine, but you are not getting the most out of those lenses if you are using them on Canon EF mount or via a Canon EF adapter.
Got it.
So these are the ones that you want to avoid. They are great. They are fine for mirrorless.
Yeah, for like micro four thirds and things like that.
And in fact, I recommend them for mirrorless because of how underrated they are. Just because Canon EF is such a massive mount in the cinema world, you know, like you can buy one for Red Epic, you know.
Oh no, Alexa,
Black Magic cameras come with it. You know, such a massive mount, and obviously people look into the lenses that are compatible with that mount. This way, this like Canon FD, Minolta ones, they kind of stay slightly in the shadow. So you can pick them up cheaper. So still recommended, but for Micro Four Thirds or Sony E mount. But if you want to build a set of lenses that you can use on anything, then M42 screw mount is one of the best options because you can put almost any adapter on top of that. You can put EF, you can put any mirrorless mount. And the adapters are very cheap and straightforward because it's a screw mount. Some other mounts have quite complicated mechanisms, like the Canon FD. So the adapters themselves either cost more or they are poorly made, and there's a wobble and stuff like that. With M42 screw mount, it's simple screw-on mechanism, so it's very easy to make the adapter, and even cheap adapters work great, mostly. You know, I've tried a bunch of different M42 adapters for different mounts, and I never had one that I felt was terrible. Where with other mounts, I would often find that the adapter was quite poor, and I had to buy again and again until I could find one that worked well.
So generally speaking, with mounts, you don't want any mount that has glass on it, generally speaking.
Yeah, because...
unless it's a speed booster or something.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah. Because these glass elements, they are mostly made by companies that have nothing to do with proper lens making. So I don't know where they source them, but not much thought is put into those optical elements. With speed boosters and some other focal reducers, they are much more focused on the quality of that optic. So it's usually a good thing to add. But avoid the cheap eBay, you know, kind of low end.
Chinese, Hong Kong.
Avoid, you know, if you see an optical, if you see an adapter that has glass in it and it costs, you know, $20, you know, don't expect anything good from it, you know. It probably will ruin the quality of your lens.
Got it. Like the Minolta one that I got.
Yeah, well, you're not the first person to say that they were amazed by the images they got out of their combo. You know, don't get me wrong, you probably are still getting great images for what you paid. You know,
but it could be, I paid $20 for a lens, right?
Yeah, but there is, you know, I'm fairly sure there is more to your lens than you think. You know, you might think, oh, this is nice, dreamy character. You know, this lens has this really interesting look to it, and it might actually turn out that it's really sharp lens, which maybe not always what you want, but you know, this might not be what this lens is actually capable of.
Now, with the M42s, is that generally full frame, or does it matter?
Yeah.
It is almost full frame all the time?
Yeah. So with vintage lenses, unless we are looking at 16mm, Super 16, or Cine lenses, almost exclusively all of the other lenses are full frame. So if you are using them on anything smaller than full frame, you can add a speed booster,
Mhm.
and this way make the lens faster and wider.
Mhm.
And if you have a full frame camera, then again, you don't need to worry about lens not covering. Majority of vintage lenses are full frame, but like I said, and that's another great reason, why you want to spend maybe even $200 on a 17mm 3.5, even though it doesn't sound like a cool lens in the first instance.
But it's a full frame, and trying to get a full frame
but because
modern
it's a full
version.
frame,
Right.
and let's say you have a super 35mm camera, because that lens is full frame, it actually becomes much wider than your kit lens. Your kit lens is 17mm at the wide end, and you think, like, why would I pay that $200 for a 17mm lens? But once you add a speed booster to it, it actually becomes like a 12mm lens.
Okay, real quick, and we've been talking about speed boosters and metabones and focal reducers. Can you just explain really quickly to the audience what a speed booster and focal reducer does, so for everybody who doesn't know?
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand what it is.
It's quite magical.
Yeah, it's exactly the word I would use. I think it's just one of those things that completely changed it for me. It just, before it came out, I thought I would never think that was possible, basically. Right. That's how good they are.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So the easiest way to explain it, they are opposite of teleconverters. So teleconverter zooms into your image. In that process, to get better reach with your lens, usually a telephoto lens, you lose at least one stop of light, or usually even more. And generally your lens becomes softer. With speed boosters, it works the other way around. It pushes the image out, makes it wider, and the special bonus is that it adds one stop of light. How does it work? Don't ask me. It's magic, as far as I'm concerned.
So basically, if you shot with a Angenu 0.95 and you put a speed booster on it,
it would become zero. No, it would not. But
you could shoot, and then you throw that on a Sony A7S II. You literally could see in the dark. You're a bat at that point.
Exactly.
So because I put
a cheap way. It's just a very cheap and great way to make your set of lenses faster and wider. So if you're using Micro Four Thirds in particular, or even like a Blackmagic pocket camera, where you're really struggling with vintage wide-angle lenses, this is a great way to grab like a 17mm or even a 28mm and just kind of make it that much wider. So it generally pushes the image out by 0.7, I think, around that. Some of them do more, some of them do less. But basically, instead of having, like I said, a 50mm, it becomes a 36mm, and so on. Again, you're wider. Instead of 17mm, it becomes a 12mm. So, this kind of great benefits for crop sensor cameras.
Yeah, I mean, I have my pocket camera and I put my Sigma 18 to 35 on it with a speed booster, and that turns into an 11, I think, 11 to 22 or something, like 23 or something like that.
Yeah, if your speed booster is the special one that was made for the pocket camera, I think it has even more push. So yeah, it becomes a fully usable zoom on the pocket camera.
It's insane. It's pretty
and
insane.
And if you try to get anything like that for pocket camera from the vintage world, I did a review a Zeiss 11 to 100 senior lens, and it becomes very expensive. So if you actually using any crop sensor camera, I highly recommend looking into lenses that you can combine with some sort of focal reducer or speed booster, because it will save you a lot of money in the long run.
Now, real quick, one other popular mount that I wanted to kind of talk about was the C mount. It's basically, if I'm not mistaken, and I've learned this the hard way going through my journeys in the vintage world, the C mount is essentially a 16 or super 16 millimeter mount, correct?
Generally, yes.
Generally. And then it covers, because I have my pocket camera, which is great. So when you buy a 17, you get a 17. When you buy a 35, you get a 35 on the pocket camera because it's a smaller lens. It would only work on a smaller sensor, but the quality, the lens quality you can get at that smaller range is higher than a lot of times you would get the equivalent of a 35 or a full frame. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah. Just before we go into it more, so the focal length as the number always stays the same, but obviously the crop affects
correct
how much more zoomed in you are into that focal range. So I think the way I would go about it is that, let's say, a 17 millimeter that is designed for the super 16.
Mm-hmm.
The way they design it, it was designed to look great on that kind of sensor or size of film.
Mm-hmm.
It will have its fall off or whatever. It will have its sharpness and everything optimized for that particular size.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you are taking a 17 millimeter that was designed for full frame, you are basically cropping into the very middle of the lens.
Mm-hmm.
So you are losing a lot of maybe that character and other things that lens has because you are only using this central portion of the lens. So this is one of the reasons why I would recommend looking into C-mount lenses if you're using a pocket camera or digital Bolex.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you use those lenses on those cameras,
mm-hmm.
You get the full. You are using the full lens.
Can you use a C mount on a GH4 or GH5?
You can use C mount on these cameras very easily,
mm-hmm.
But not many will be close to covering the sensor. There are some exceptions, I think, that might cover the sensor,
mm-hmm.
or at least in a slight crop mode, like a let's say GH4 4K mode,
mm-hmm.
Where it crops in a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, with C-mount lenses, you want to go into that, what is it called? Electronic conversion mode or something like that.
APC mode or something like that?
Yeah. Something like that, where it really pushes into the image.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can kind of use it, and you can even use C-mount lenses on some of the Sony cameras nowadays,
mm-hmm.
because they have, let's say, A6500.
Mm-hmm.
It's already a Super 35 size sensor,
mm-hmm.
but it also have the clear zoom ability, because it's a 4K camera. You can kind of push into that image,
mm-hmm.
And still get decent quality by using a lens that was designed for a much smaller sensor.
Right.
So they're really fun lenses, and I think as the time goes, there are more and more cameras that you can explore them with. It doesn't have to be digital Bolex or Blackmagic pocket camera anymore. There are many more cameras that you can explore them with.
Yeah, I got the Ken Pollard's Swistar lenses. Yeah. Obviously the Kev 16s. Will those work? Will the Kev 16 set work on Super 35?
They will not cover it will be massive vignette, but again, with some cameras you can
crop in
into the image, and like the 20 millimeter and the 50 millimeter from that Kiev set will cover. I think they cover like GH4 something like that, or at least in like a slight crop mode.
Well, I mean, like I just got the Angenieux 12 to 120 C mount. And it's a stunning lens. I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm hoping and praying it's a stunning lens. But generally speaking,
I think it's another Kubrick lens, isn't it?
I don't know if it was that specific one. No, he did the Barry Lyndon one. Is I think a ridiculous 15 to 250. Like it's insane. But I think it was Angenieux. And but
wait, I think he actually used my 12 to 12 to 240. I had the engineer 12 to 1240, and I think that's the one he used.
Well, whatever he uses is fine with me. I'm trying to build my same set that he had.
I think you are safe to go with most of these engineer lenses and expect to, get pretty interesting images out of them.
Right. So the reason I was saying is like I got it specifically for my black the pocket camera, knowing that lens was built for that sensor size, but the cost to buy that lens today trying to get that kind of Angenu quality from that kind of focal length zoom today to get that same on a 35, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, probably 30,000. Obviously, it will be
different,
much, much more superior optically.
Of course.
And, all other things that come with it, build quality and and that.
Of course.
But the price obviously is so different. It's beyond,
it's under 500. I mean, you can get a really brilliantly nice mint shaped one for under $500.
I sold my 12 to 120, the same one that you got. I sold it for $100 to someone because it had some imperfections. I just kind of passed it on to someone else, and I was kind of beating myself up afterwards.
You should have been. Yes, that's my friend. That was a gift.
Yeah, but at the same time, I kind of don't mind because I know it kind of sounds.
You're spreading the word.
Yeah, I know it kind of sounds like I don't know. I'm talking.
I know
very nice to myself, but I do like the idea of kind of passing it on and spreading the word and kind of
an evangelist,
spreading connections with people. And I know they will come back to me one day. The same person might want to buy some other lens that I sell afterwards, where it might be better price for me. Just the kind of thing. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but I think if it's something that another person will enjoy, it's likely that you have created a little relationship in there, and you actually helped someone explore, lenses that you are passionate about.
I mean, I tell you, just from the short, I've probably been into the vintage lenses like seriously for a couple months now, doing insane amounts of research, much of it on your website, and I've already started building relationships with lens manufacturers and had Matthew Duclos on the podcast as well, and we're building a relationship and working together on stuff, and it's all because of glass. it's a pretty magical thing, and I always tell people it's kind of like a paintbrush, like you're buying different paintbrushes to
I think
tell your story.
It's a paintbrush more than anything else, at least in the camera side of things. Lighting obviously is
of course
amazing tool that a lot of newbies ignore. Like I know how long I ignored it for, taking it for granted, thinking I kind of just need to light things up and that's it, and then realizing that
there's an art.
Looking at various Hollywood films and thinking, oh wait, everything is sharp in this image. There's no sharp depth of field, and yet there's so much depth. How did they do this? This. Oh, it's lighting. Oh, they slated this part with the lighting.
Right.
And in the 5D days, when everyone was just shooting at 1.4,
yes,
and only one eye was sharp, and the other eye was already out of focus, and I'm guilty of that as well.
Right.
Falling to that trend, and we all so many people thought this is the thing, that's the cinematic image, and it's not, So obviously you can't just rely on lenses, right, or just on lighting.
No,
but as far as the camera side goes, I think lenses add so much to your final image. More than camera, 100%. Like so many people say who really know their stuff, including Matt Duclos probably would say the same thing. Buying, owning, maybe building or knowing a set of lenses especially if you're going to buy one, it's much more important to buy a set of lenses that you really connect with and that you're passionate about than, buying a camera. Because while cameras always upgrade, I think, if you're trying to establish yourself as a person with a certain look, certain thing, the lenses definitely give much more than a camera. Is it RLX or is it Red Epic? With a good grade, a lot of people will not be able to tell, but a lens, how much it adds to either of those cameras. It's like I said before, it's not something that you can genuinely mimic in post.
No, no, absolutely. And I think it's one of the best investments in gear you can make is lenses, because they don't generally lose value. Generally speaking, we're still selling and buying lenses from 60 years ago.
Yeah, and whenever someone tells me how is the build quality of that lens, and I'm like, well, it lasted for 30, 40 years before me. So it's quite safe to say that the build quality is good.
Right. I'm not sure a lot of these plastic lenses that are being made today are going to be around 50 years from now.
Yeah.
But there is that magic to it. It was Matthew was telling me the story of Savides, the amazing cinematographer, legendary cinematographer, who told him, "Hey, I want you to rehouse these Baltars for me." And he's like, "Why?" And Matthew actually said, "Why would you want me to do this? This glass is old. It's like 60-year-old glass, and it's not like it's garbage. Why would you want that?" He goes, "I just like the look of them." And so he did. And the second he shot, I forgot what movie it was with it, but it was a big Hollywood movie. He shot with the Baltars, and it gave a look that you just could not replicate without them. Like there's nothing you could do modernly to do what those lenses did. And he told me that set of Baltars did not stay in. He was rented every day for 3 years.
Yeah.
Like it did not stop. And even now, it's just at Cinegear, and I saw Arri came out with their vintage lens line for 70 mil or 8K.
Yeah.
It's like the medium format, but it's vintage, so they took vintage glass.
Yeah. I saw that a few years when Arri Alexa 65, the bigger sensor one came out. I saw that again also at the show in UK. They were just starting with the idea. On their stand, on the Arri stand, I saw a Zeiss Jena medium format lens on their stand, just with the XPL mount.
Yeah,
but still not rehoused. But they were already kind of
playing with the idea,
going back to maybe we should start rehousing some of those older lenses. And I guess what you saw there, it could well be some of the lenses that just a few years ago were, maybe $100 lens, $200 lens, because no one was using them anymore.
Right. And now they're $1,000 lens.
And I did not invest into that particular set of lenses because I didn't see any need for medium format lenses in my collection. And I think the prices on medium format lenses are now becoming higher and higher, just because we are now again seeing the trend for biggest sensor cameras. Like the cameras, we can only have so many Ks in the cameras and latitude and this, that, and they're looking at, what's the next thing that we can do, because they have to sell cameras. They have to give us something more. So I'm sure we are moving towards bigger and bigger sensors. 10,
12K, like why?
Yeah, bigger case and bigger size of the sensor.
Yeah,
I think that's the next thing. We're seeing still cameras with medium sensors coming out, becoming a bit more affordable. More and more companies kind of going back to that size. And again, we're seeing red going towards, VistaVision full frame. Obviously, ARRI have their own offering, and I'm sure we will start seeing this big and bigger sensors from other companies as well. You never know, Blackmagic might jump on that ship and come out with a full frame camera, and again, that will give them so much popularity and reach. So there's never a bad time to invest into vintage lenses, I would say.
Yeah, and
because the way trend is moving, the prices will only go up. So, like you said, it's a great investment.
And one of the few things that you can actually invest in the film industry that actually will pay you back.
Definitely not cameras.
Exactly, definitely not cameras. So a couple more questions before we go. What is the best bang for the buck when it comes to vintage glass, in your opinion? Like, if you were gonna, man, for the money, might not be the best piece of glass, obviously, but for the money, you can't go
wrong. Generally, I go with Canon FD lenses, and I have a buyer's guide on the website where I'm looking at various, because Canon FD range is so massive. There are a few versions of each lens. There's 28 millimeter. You can buy it in the f2 and f2.8 and f3.5. There's a 50 millimeter. There's many steps of that lens and so on. Every focal range has lots of choices. There are so many focal choices. There are some zooms. So and they're massively affordable and available pretty much everywhere in the world, because Canon brand, always was a big brand.
Right. But that's the one you stay away from EF mounts, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes. Again, if you're on an EF mount camera, this is probably not a choice. But for everyone else, I always say, check out Canon FD lenses, because they have been sort of underrated, and the image quality combined with a bit of nice character is just a great combination that you can use for most work, not just for your projects that need, that vintage character. They are nice enough optically for you to take it on a corporate job or something like that. I don't usually say, use Helios 44-2 for everything, because you can't use it for everything. You take it on a corporate job and it will be like, what the hell? There's no use for this here.
Right. Yeah, you're shooting an infomercial with the Helios. Yeah. It's going to be a very interesting Helios.
I never claimed that, the vintage lenses or like Helios is a lens for everything. There is a right lens for the right job. And when I recommend something as a general, usually Canon FD is the set of lenses that I recommend that you can use for most things. If you are on EF camera, then I will generally recommend Zeiss Jena lenses, because they are M42 mount and you can use them on pretty much everything, and they're as affordable as Canon FD, and they have nice sharpness, they have nice
they're full frame
contrast, they're full frame, they have vibrant colors, and still enough character. And then if you someone on slightly higher level and you want to use, again, have a set that you can use for pretty much anything, the next step is the Carl Zeiss contacts. These are some of the highest end stills lenses that are becoming more and more popular with the Cineworld, just because of how incredible they are optically.
What is it like? What is a 20 mil or a 35 or a 50 mil run, generally speaking, so people understand?
Well, again, there is a good why contacts size is a good option is because, again, you have nice range of lenses that you can choose from. So a 35 2.8 is fairly affordable. It's I think around 250.
That is...
I know it's not super cheap for vintage lens, but for Zeiss lens, it's a really good price.
Oh my God, try to get a Zeiss CP2. 30, you're talking about a $2,000. Excuse me, no. What am I talking about? $3,000 to $5,000, depending.
Yeah, but even Zeiss, like just like slightly upgraded Zeiss lenses, like I think FE, like Steel's range. Even they apparently are mostly based on Zeiss contacts lenses. Well, some of them anyway, and they run at much higher price. So if you have a little bit more cash to spend, you are serious about earning money from your filming, and you want a set that you can take on pretty much any job, then Zeiss Contacts is definitely one of my highest recommendations. The only other brand that I haven't explored at all yet is the Leica R. Oh. It's the only other option that is even slightly more high-end than Zeiss Contacts.
But they're expensive. It's
just under it in terms of popularity and respect.
Yeah.
But it's much more affordable, and there are more options to choose from. There's like a 28 2.8, there's a 35 2.8,
right.
There's an incredible 51.7, which might not sound special, but it's incredible optically. There's an 85 2.8 and a 135 2.8. So they might not sound super fast, but again, combine them with a speed booster, and you've got yourself a super nice set for probably not that much more than $1,000.
That's ridiculous.
A bit more than Zeiss Jena, but not that much more.
And what is the sharpest vintage lens you've ever tested?
Funnily enough, one of the sharpest lenses that I've used is a Vivitar. And Vivitar is like, what brand is that?
I love Vivitars. I have mine. I got a 135. It is gorgeous.
Yeah, they are so underrated. I actually forgot to talk about them because even I forget about them.
They're a Japanese lens company.
The thing with Vivitar lenses, this is the brand, one of the main brands that never actually designed their own lenses. They used, I think, almost 20 different manufacturers to make lenses for them. So the problem with Vivitar, there is a massive inconsistency because only certain brands produced incredible gems, and some other brands produced very general, softish lenses. So unless you really research your Vivitars, you can buy one and be disappointed and kind of forget about the brand because you didn't know that it's not as much as about a brand as about who made the lens for that brand. So there is a Vivitar 90mm 2.5 micron, and that was made by Tokina. And Tokina then made that lens under their own brand as well, but I think they started by just making it for Vivitar, and that is a cult classic lens. So if you look it up on Google, there are some forums where people just go crazy about it because it's so incredibly sharp. Micro lenses in general are sharper than other lenses, so they generally are great for portraits, for anything where you need like really nice crisp image. But that lens not only has great sharpness wide open, but it also has super smooth bokeh, not swirly, but rather a super creamy, pleasant bokeh that can be exactly what's needed for a certain thing that you're shooting.
That was the Vivitar
92.5, made by Tokina.
Macro.
And it even has a nickname, Bokina, because it's known for its amazing bokeh. And the way to recognize which Vivitar lens you want is by the serial number. So each lens starts with a serial number. First two digits will tell you what manufacturer made the lens. It's very easy to just kind of type in Vivitar serial numbers on Google, and there is a list. So you generally want to look out for those known brands like Takina made some. There's some others like Kino Precision, which are least known. But again, I have some reviews on my website where I look at various Vivita lenses, and that's how you can kind of pick up the brands that are the better ones, and some other brands that maybe you want to avoid. So yeah.
And which out of all the lenses you've tested has the most character or film-like property?
You know which one I want to say.
If you want to say it, it's okay to say it.
Oh,
it's okay.
Film-like quality.
Because I mean, I've some of these, like the Swiss Star, the Ken Ballard Swiss Star.
I was actually thinking about the Angini 1768.
That is gorgeous. The engineers are gorgeous too.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about that lens, how much I enjoyed, the image that was coming out of it. But I then know that it's a very specific kind of lens. You can't use it on full frame. You can't use it on Super 35. So, generally I would say, try the Helios 44-2 and, discover its magic. It's not the lens for everything, but, you will easily find a project where you might just want to shoot the whole thing with that lens. Like a music video, a little like commercial or something like that, something a bit arty, maybe not without any real story, but somewhere where you just want it to look beautiful. And, this is definitely the lens.
And real quick, I just wanted to ask your opinion on, because if people are still listening, that means they're into what we're talking about. So, because this has gone long, and I think we've geeked out pretty heavily on lenses. So
and we could keep going.
Oh, and we could talk for another 2 or 3 hours. I mean, I have.
We'll need to do. We'll need to come up with some with some more questions, maybe on some feedback that you might get.
Exactly. No, the Super Takamura, is that the way you pronounce it?
Super Takumar, I think, is how you pronounce it. But I wouldn't say that you're wrong, because I've never actually heard anyone pronounce it.
I call it Super Takamura. I got the.
And I'm not gonna say this is wrong, because I'm not saying I'm right. This is the thing with some of those vintage lenses. You kind of don't even know how to pronounce some of the names, because no one anymore kind of talks about them. So
like why? Yeah, exactly.
The names are open to interpretation.
The Super Takamura, yes. I got the 50. And
okay, the 51.4, I guess is.
It is super sharp. I was blown away how beautiful it looked.
It's another one of those cult classics that has a massive following. There is a group on Facebook called Vintage Lens for Video, which is the group that I started a long time ago.
On Facebook, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and I decided to create a poll of people commenting and adding their lenses as to what is their favorite lens. So people were able to add their lens, and then other people could tick the box and get more votes, upvote the lens. And obviously Helios 44-2 was by a massive margin the most popular lens. Probably got over 100 votes. But the next second popular lens was actually the Super Takuma 50mm 1.4, because I think everyone who tries that lens absolutely falls in love with that lens. It's also that good.
It's so good. I took it on, just started taking some stills with my daughters, and I was like, what the heck is that? I was just.
I only amazing. Bought it recently, but I also took it out on a day out, and the smoothness, how pleasant the image is out of that lens.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And I paid like $40.
Yeah.
$50 for it. It was.
Yeah. I'm not gonna claim that you're not gonna get that smoothness out of some modern lenses.
Right. But not for $40 or $50.
But you only paid $40 for the lens,
I mean, it's exactly.
It's so effortless, you don't need to. There's no massive risk in it, and chances, you will probably sell it for at least 50, maybe 100. you know?
Depending on how, yeah, exactly. And
yeah, depending on the condition, depending how long you have it, and circumstances, but you will never lose anything on that lens, and most vintage lenses, so it's such a low risk investment. You can keep exploring and just seeing whatever works for you.
And and that's the thing. Again, why I wanted to have you on the show is I really wanted filmmakers to understand that buying glass is not out of your reach anymore, because a lot of filmmakers are like, man, I can't afford to buy my own lenses. Well, this is a great way to kind of experiment, go hunting, go searching for that gem that no one's really heard of, and shoot something with it. And then you can go deep down this rabbit hole, as Alan and I have.
You need to. I say it to a lot of people who got into a situation. This is great, but be careful, because on my last count, I had 235 lenses.
Wow! It was 100 before. Last time you said it was 100. So.
Yeah. There was a count that I decided I need to reduce my collection, and I went through all of my lenses and kind of tried to count them. So more or less that's the number. And I've been kind of trying to bring it down, even though this is the thing for me. This is what I'm about. I'm so passionate. I'm like self-proclaimed ambassador for vintage lenses.
Yeah, sure.
But it's not impossible to get to where I am. I know some people who have as many, and there is no need for so many lenses. I know I don't need so many lenses.
Exactly.
My only excuse is that I review them, I compare them, I write about them. Sometimes I need a few of them, to put them together and stuff like that. But even I know that, I don't need to have that many. So I've been trying to kind of come down on numbers. And to anyone who is getting into the habit of just buying up every lens they don't have yet, because they're so cheap, I would say, try to concentrate on sets. If you like Super Tacumars, or if you like Nikors, just try to just build on that, and go with the same set. Yes, vintage lenses are great, but all of them have such different look and such different character that if you take out a bunch of different vintage lenses on one job, chances are you're gonna end up with some mess, because your mid shot will have lots of flare and low contrast, and then your wide shot will have much colder image and maybe high contrast. And try grading that in post. So that's why ideally you want to concentrate on sticking with one brand and building on that, and then only having those few extra special lenses like the Helios 44-2. If you decided you don't want to go with a Russian set, just get the Helios 44-2 for those special occasions, or maybe the special sequence,
the dream sequence,
or maybe have a micro that's a different brand, because you will only use it for the micro shot.
Or like the Canoptic, that's a
Canoptic, very special lens. That's, I think, what I said in my review. It's like the dream sequence lens, because it's so far from perfect, but it's so special that there is a sequence somewhere where it will be absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it's called Clockwork Orange.
Exactly.
It depends on the filmmaker and what you can use. It's a paintbrush. You give a paintbrush to Picasso, or you give a paintbrush to me, it's going to be two different pictures, two different paintings.
Yeah, but the easiest way is just don't, because that's what happened. That's what happened to me. Don't just buy every bargain that you see, because there will be a lot in vintage lens world.
It's so
maybe to start with, buy some, but then kind of try to figure out what you like most, and concentrate in that direction.
I'm using your excuse. I'm going to start reviewing them and talking about them, and
exactly. So, absolutely nothing wrong with it.
That'll be my excuse.
Eventually, you will get your money back, and probably will even make some money. Like, most likely, you will make some money on the lenses that you bought like a year ago.
Yeah.
But while they are in your possession, it can feel a bit daunting that you have spent so much money, and you're not using them every day.
Right.
They will just sit on a shelf, and you'll be like, this is cool, but I also feel so guilty.
Yeah, well, with my Canoptic, the 5.7. I don't think I'm gonna ever sell it because I'm a Kubrick fanatic, and just to know that I have something that even is remotely capable of getting an image that even remotely looked like anything that Kubrick ever shot.
Yeah, that's
Not
what it
that,
means.
not even
It's
that I could even serve him tea, but yeah, as a filmmaker, I couldn't even serve him tea. But just to know that that lens is so special, it's one I probably will hold on to for a long, long time. And I was lucky enough to get a mint, like as mint, literally off the factory floor.
Oh, that's awesome because with them it's tough. The massive front element. People
Oh,
who look into that lens, they will see how interesting that lens is. The front element is massive and completely flat,
yes.
and it's not really protected by much.
Nope.
It's so easy to have that scratched, and obviously being a vintage lens,
Oh yeah. How
you
old
need
is
to
that?
be lucky to
How old is
make
that
it.
lens, by the way? Do you know?
Man, it's like
50s?
probably around 50 years easily. It's like the older vintage lens.
Jeez. And then the other thing I wanted to talk real quick about, guys, listening, when you go down this rabbit hole of vintage lenses, and it can get stupid as it's gotten with me and Alan, when you start getting into like 100-year-old lenses
Oh yeah,
and
there are
building
people.
custom rigs to be
Yeah,
able to
yeah,
focus 100-year-old lenses, and this
yeah.
is the little voice in your head. And I'm sure you have the same guy in your head, Alan. Like, what if I got that? I wonder what that would look like. If I could make that work, maybe I could shoot something that no one has ever seen before. You know?
Yes, yes. There are people on the Vintage Lens for Video Facebook group that do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They have folks in helicoils that they put like this lenses that called magic lanterns. Basically, even the name it takes you back.
Right.
They're like some of the first lenses that ever existed.
Right.
And obviously the image is very unique, but yeah, it's thankfully there were a few occasions where I wanted to buy one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so glad, because yes, you will create something special, but I think you probably are fine just kind of sticking with the 50-year-old lenses.
Right. Now you're going deep, and then you start getting into.
They're vintage enough,
Yeah, I know
There
exactly.
is no limit as far as how how old you can go.
But then you're
You
like,
can go to the first lenses that ever existed and kind of make them work on modern cameras. But
is it worth it?
in terms of practicality and real use,
Yeah, like,
50, 30-year-old vintage lenses are still totally usable. They still have nice focusing rings, or maybe some of them need to be serviced, but mostly they're still very capable. Where lenses that go, let's say over 50 years old
mm-hmm.
and older, this is something where you just can do it more for fun.
Mm-hmm.
Because it will generally be impractical. You will have to modify them.
Oh no, it's insane. And imagine, and then you start getting into the other lenses, like projection lenses, and
don't talk to me about projection lenses because we'll be here for another 2 hours.
Good,
in particular, I don't get into projection lenses.
All right.
But when we haven't touched the anamorphic lens world.
Yeah.
If you want to get into anamorphic, unfortunately, you kind of have to get into projection lenses, even if you're a guy like me who doesn't really go into DIY, who tries to kind of stick with ready vintage lenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about anamorphic, and that.
Yeah.
I started.
Part two or something. I don't know. It's the massive subject.
I started to dip my toe into it, and then I was like, "Yeah, I'm out. I can't do this right now. I can't."
Yeah, because it's sort of like the low end of it. It's sort of like using those 100-year-old lenses.
Yeah.
That's how DIY it gets. You need to get clamps, and you need to focus with both your taking lens and your projection lens.
Yeah.
It gets crazy, and people do it, and I've done it just because they last after that, anamorphic image, after those flares.
Mm-hmm.
They really want to experience them,
mm-hmm.
and they either can't afford to rent because you basically can't afford to buy them, like unless you look super high end. But a lot of people can't even afford to rent anamorphic lenses, So the only way to try them is to grab those projection lenses, put them into this crazy rig, and you can get really cool results. But so impractical.
It's very much so. So let me give you the last 3 questions and I'll let you go, man, because you've given us a tremendous amount of your time. So I truly appreciate it, Alan. What advice would you give a filmmaker just jumping into the business? Besides buy vintage lenses.
Okay. I think as you start out, you have to make a lot of sacrifices, your time sacrifices, financial sacrifices. You have to shoot a lot for free just to build connections. Fortunately, in filmmaking world, most of the people you will meet on a set are your friends. They are not your competition. Like, you will meet a sound guy, you will meet a producer, you will meet this, like so many other people who will, if you have made a good impression and have done a good job, you are not a douchebag, you're a nice person. Most likely, when someone comes along, they might either refer you or call you because you are not their competition. They might need you, So, when I was first starting out, I had to do a lot of, short films and, a lot of little projects where there was no money in it, but it gave me a great way to practice and also to meet so many people who, at much later stage, maybe 2 years down the line, they were like, oh, there's this job that someone needs a camera guy for, do you want to do it? And I never knew back on that project, which was completely free. And, I was giving my time. I was not making any money. I didn't know I'm going to make any money down the line, but, believing in the concept of building relationships and, creating solid connections, will most likely, take you much further down the line. And I think staying humble as you grow and remembering, the people you worked with when you started is very important, because you never know where people are going.
Oh, yeah.
Someone who's just starting out
will give you a job in a few years.
Yeah, they might become a great director or something like that in 5 years' time. And if you are arrogant because they're still not there, like you already got to the next level, and I'm not into this stuff anymore. You can be nice about it at the very least.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you never know. Always stay kind of humble and nice to people, especially the ones that you started with, because they most likely helped you build up your relationship in the community and build up your showreel, more importantly.
Now, what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
That's probably a matter for a different podcast. Life part anyway. But in business, I wouldn't like. It kind of takes me back to. Do you want to take about the business part or the creative part?
I think business, because we always talk a lot about the creative, but I really would love to talk about business, because if you have a lesson that you've learned in business, in the business side of the film business, that would be probably helpful.
Okay. I should have read your questions beforehand. Good question. I think it's not to take anything for granted, like it's always going to be there. And it goes with life as well. It's just you always have to be on your toes, networking and looking out for opportunities, staying in touch with people, because if you become too comfortable, the time might come when work dries up and you suddenly don't have anywhere to turn to, and you have to start from the start. I've had such experience with my work where I became very comfortable working for one company, was providing more than 50% of my income, and then suddenly
they're gone.
That kind of went into different direction, and suddenly I find myself thinking, what do I do next? So always spread out your work and your connections so that you're not relying on one thing. Because in business, any business, it's really important to have your options open in case that one source of income dries up, and if you don't have anything else, then you're screwed.
Diversify.
And suddenly you just have to work and go and work in a restaurant or coffee shop, and you're no longer doing what you love in film business, just because you didn't
diversify. Didn't diversify.
Yeah.
Multiple revenue streams from multiple different sources. So if something drops,
I think that's what I'm still learning. I'm still trying to do, because most of us in filmmaking world are self-employed, like freelance. So there's never a consistency. So you always have to keep hustling, like your website is called.
Yeah, always hustle it, baby. Always hustle it. Now,
that's the thing.
Now, what are three of your favorite films of all time?
Oh man, actually, strangely enough, whenever I think of Clockwork's Orange,
oh yeah,
I'm always like, this is something else. And I'm not, and I'm not a person that is into violent films or anything like that. Generally,
oddly enough, if we want to talk about Clockwork Orange, it's oddly not that violent.
Yeah.
Comparatively to television today.
Oh, the television today, don't get me started. Because I know, and whatever, I'm not judging anyone, but I'm not particularly into violence. It doesn't bring out anything in me, positive. Or I don't think it generally brings out anything in people, other than taking maybe some frustration out of certain individuals where, they might feel frustrated, and television kind of, maybe lets them get it out somehow in the system. I don't know.
I know, but
I don't. Yeah, I don't genuinely love films that concentrate on violence or anything like that. But that's just a masterpiece, It's just so much more to it. I love films that have a bit more to the story.
Yep.
Things that you sometimes need to. Every time you watch a film, you find something new. Little details, and I think Clockwork Orange it's one of those films that every time I watch it, because I don't see it that often, but every time I would see it, it would be like almost like watching for the first time.
Yep, exactly. That's one of those movies that's just like what he does in the first 20 minutes alone is more than filmmakers do in their career.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, I know. And actually, one other film that I really love is Oblivion, and I know that a lot of people.
I enjoyed that film.
Some people don't like it at all. Some people, love it. For me, I do love the story of it, but for me, I really loved the cinematography of that film.
He's that director and that DP did a really great job with the cinematography in Oblivion. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I just it kind of really made me research that film a bit. How did they shoot it? What lenses did they use and stuff like that. I think they mostly used modern glass in it.
Of course, yeah.
DP, Claudio Miranda, I believe his name is. He's one of those cinematographers who actually likes to use vintage lens once in a while, which was nice to hear. Especially on like shooting female skin tones and stuff like that.
Yes.
How they explain how it flattens the look of how female actors almost, if they know about it stuff, they sometimes even request
certain lenses.
That something like that is used for them because of how nice it is. So yeah, whenever film does that to me, where I want to research more, go deeper into it, and it kind of inspires me. That's it's always a good sign.
And where can people find you?
Okay, so The main hub is the vintagelensesforvideo.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's the website.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also on pretty much every social network there is.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe apart from Snapchat, because I tried it and didn't work for my format.
Yes.
But on Instagram, it's another great place to check vintage lenses for video out, because I try to post something every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Where with the website, I usually do like 1-2 reviews per month.
Yes, I'm very upset about that, by the way.
That's I can only blame business for that.
Yes, I know. I don't feel it, brother. Trust me, I
It's
know.
difficult to make money online, and I have to spend my time trying to make a living, which is, again, another place where I can be found is Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys want me to produce more content, you want to see more vintage lens reviews and stuff like that, then check out a Vintage Lens for Video Patreon page, because this is one of the only ways how I can try and spend more time to bring out exciting content. And it's completely the thing that you just gonna do it if you want. I never try to sell anything to people.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to help, they help. If they want to just enjoy it for free, that's fine. I will still try to keep doing it as much as I can.
Alan, man, thank you so much. I'll put all those links in the show descriptions. But man, I really this interview has gotten out of control. we went. We're getting close to 2 hours already, which is by oddly enough not the longest interview I've ever done. But we definitely went deep down the rabbit hole of vintage glass, and I really appreciate you taking the time out, man.
So great to be on your show. It's the first experience doing something like that, and definitely very enjoyable, because I will never pass on an opportunity to geek out.
I appreciate it, brother. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Well, if you want to know about vintage lenses, you definitely know more now than you did when you first started listening to this podcast. Again, it's kind of changed my perspective on how I shoot things, how I do things. I've really dug deep into lenses, and because they're essentially your paintbrush. They are your paintbrush when you're making a film, as a cinematographer, as a director, as a hybrid of the two. They can impart a signature look on a film or on your style as a cinematographer or as a director. And they don't have to cost tens of thousands of dollars to do so, especially when you're starting out, or also especially when you are trying to set yourself apart from the pack. If everyone else is shooting with the same old glass that everybody else is shooting, and you pick up something that's 50 years old, put it on a certain camera, color grade it a certain way, and you've got a very unique look, well, hell, man, that's going to make you stand apart from everybody else. At the end of the day, though, it's always about story. It's always about how these paintbrushes tell your story. I'm not telling you that if you go out and buy these lenses, you're going to have a better movie. You're going to have a better looking movie, maybe a more unique looking movie. But at the end of the day, it's always about story. And also, don't forget that just because someone can give me a $2,000 paintbrush that is the most amazing paintbrush ever created in existence, and gave me a canvas and some paint, and I guarantee you I'm not going to be able to paint anything even remotely close to what Van Gogh or Dali or any of the masters did. Okay, so it's not about the tools, but if you're good at what you do, those tools can bring a unique perspective to your work as an artist and as a filmmaker. And again, guys, please don't forget to head over to iTunes and pre-order thisismeg.com at thisismeg.com/iTunes. It's really going to help out the cause a lot, and I really am excited to get it out there for you guys, and for you guys to see it and let me know what you think. And I can't wait to start talking about the next projects I've got going on and what's in store for Indie Film Hustle, and how I'm going to be changing a bunch of stuff and adding a bunch of cool stuff to it in the future, as well as what I'm going to be doing with the Indie Film Syndicate and how we're going to be making that better as well, as a membership community that we have. So stay tuned, guys. There's a lot of stuff coming. And guys, if you haven't checked out my YouTube page, definitely head over there. Go to indiefilmhustle.com/YouTube, and you'll be able to subscribe and check out all the videos I'm going to be putting out on YouTube. These vintage lens tests I'm going to be doing, as well as some other cool things that I have in store for you guys. So definitely go on YouTube, subscribe, and so you can stay up to date with all things indie film hustle. And as always, keep that hustle going, keep that dream alive, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.